Hey everyone, this is Charlie Guo, the co-founder and the principal of XCAM. We are here to happy to host 2024-25 season USACO bronze test for the December ones. So we will have Alex Du, who is a USACO Platinum Division contest. Will share his solutions of this contest. Alex Du is one of our students in the first class of XCamp since 7 years ago. He was the first one in XCamp history to pass gold with a 1,000 perfect score. He's now studying in Berkeley in computer science. Here, let's welcome Alex.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I guess I'll just get started right away with the problem explanations. I hope everyone can see my whiteboard. And let me pull up the problem statement for the first problem. Yeah. So, first of all, I hope everyone has read this problem. I'm assuming that if you are here, you've tried to take this contest. So I won't go over the problem statement too in depth, but basically we just have this problem where they give like a pretty complicated explanation on like, how to round or whatever, but in reality, it's just rounding to like the nearest number, right? Like everyone has done this before in school. So if you round to like the nearest tenth, if it's like 5 or above, you round up. If the ones are just like 5 or less than 5, then you round down, right? And the problem is asking for to count the number of numbers where if you round up every digit, so like 1 digit, 10 digit, 100 digit, all the way up to the largest digit of the number, you'll get a different number than if you just directly round the top digit. So the first thing to do when we see a problem of this type is to try out examples. And when we try out examples, we want to try out small examples and see if we can find the pattern. So if we first try out numbers that are just ones, just have 1 digit, so numbers less than 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? We see that it doesn't matter. Whatever rounding every digit before, so like doing the chain rounding is the exact same as just rounding the highest digit, right? So like every number 5 and above rounds up, every number 4 and below rounds down. There's no difference. So here it would just be 0 for our answer. But now let's think about if the number has 2 digits. So if the number is in between 1 and if the number is in between 10 and 100, what are the numbers that can potentially have a different number rounding up and down? So then we have to think. So the numbers that would normally round down would be in like the 40s, right? So we think like any numbers that's in the 30s, even if we round up the tens digit, the ones digit, at most we're gonna get a 4 in the tens digit, and that'll still round down. So we don't have to consider anything below 40, right? But if we consider numbers in the 40s, if we have a 4 in the tens digit, the ones digit, so anything in the 40s is normally supposed to round down if we round directly. But if we do chain rounding, there's a way to round this 40 to a 50. So if we have like 45, 46, 47, 48, 49. These numbers we see that are supposed to round down to 0, but if you round them up, if you do chain rounding, the ones digit first rounds up, it'll become 50, and the 50 rounds up to 100. So we see here that the numbers that we're gonna get from 10 to 100, there's 5 numbers, which are the 5 I listed here that we can list. So that's the answer for number less than 100. So let's continue trying out even more examples. If we next try out numbers with 3 digits, right? So let's just take like 100. So obviously so the thing is for numbers like 100, in the 100 digits, there's going to be like 100 still gonna, like any number that's like 100, 200, 300, 400, like 300 is still going to round down to like 0 instead of next 1000, obviously. So the only numbers that can actually matter again are going to be numbers that start with 400 and then have 2 missing numbers. And the numbers here that we can have, like, so we need this number to round up to 500 while chain rounding. And we know that this number is going to round down to 0 while not chain rounding. So in order for this number to round up to 100, to 500 while chain rounding, this has to be, well, first it can originally be the 5 numbers we listed that will round up to 50. So from the previous case, so 44, 45, 46, 47, 48. But then also any number greater than that, right? So also like 50, 60, any number greater than 444 is going to chain round up to 500. And from there, we are starting to see a pattern, right? So for tens digits, for any number less than 100, for any number with 2 digits, we saw that the numbers that are going to chain round up are going to be any number greater than 44. And for the numbers that are in the hundreds, it's any number greater than 444, but also less than 500. Less than, for this number, less than 50, and for here, less than 500. Because any number greater than 500 is supposed to round up, meaning that it's not going to be any different. So here, we have already found a pattern here, right? So for the pattern here is that, so here there's going to be 5 numbers. For the second one, it's 55 numbers, right? If we count them. And then here it's the next one will obviously, like if we continue the pattern, it'll be 555 numbers, right? Because it'll be greater than 4444 and then less than 5,000, so on. The thing is, once we find this pattern, we can solve this problem if n is any number that's going to be like a whole number, right? So if n is like any number with just like a bunch of zeros, we basically already solved the problem. The issue is now if 1 is like in between some numbers. For example, let's look at case 3, which is 4, 5, 6, 7, n equals 4, 5, 6, 7. How do we find the numbers here? So obviously we can first count all the 2-digit numbers, which is just 5, count all the 3-digit numbers, which is 55. But now n is in itself a 4-digit number, meaning that it could it's going to potentially encompass some 4-digit numbers, some of this 5555, but not all of it. But we know that the only numbers satisfying this condition of like rounding differently, chain rounding versus non-chain rounding, are the numbers that are greater than 4,444 and less than 5,000. So from here, we can just do some casework on basically the number of digits that n has. So if n's a 4-digit number, then we check if it's between if it's between 400, like 4,444 and 5,000, we just do n minus 4444. If n is greater than 4444 and less than 5,000. If n is greater than 5,000, then we can obviously, every single 4-digit number is included. So n is going to be like it's just add 555 because we know that that's all the numbers in between out of the 4-digit numbers. And if n is less than 44444, then we don't need to do anything at all. Then like because it's plus 0 because it doesn't include any 4-digit number out of there. And to actually code this problem, there's different ways. We could there's one way where we can, for example, just compare to n to 44, then 444, then 4444, and like so on, while also comparing with these numbers. So basically just looping up, increasing like the number of 4s here by 1, increasing the number of zeros in the 500 from 5,000, increase the number of zeros there every time, and just keep computing these 3 operations, right? And if we ever get to either of these cases, we just stop. Otherwise, we can keep adding. Does anyone have any questions about this problem? Okay, I'm going to assume that's a no because no one said anything. Yeah, okay, so we see that this problem is kind of like an example of, it's mostly an ad hoc problem. It doesn't really use any one specific algorithm. It's more just, you have to try the examples in order to find this pattern. And if you can find this pattern, the problem becomes pretty simple. You just have to have the ability to code the math required. But there's only let's see, someone wrote, is O of n solution needed? Um, this solution is actually not O of n. This solution is actually O of like log n pretty much. We see here like there's only going to be 9 computations needed. O of n is not going to pass actually, because like O of n is where n is 10 to the ninth. Yeah, n is less than 10 to the ninth is not a valid solution. 10 to the 9 usually does not pass. So we see here that like we are not allowed to just loop through all the numbers and just try to round each one of them. We have to instead find this pattern of finding numbers. Yeah. And like there's only going to be at most 9 computations because like the numbers we're comparing can only go up to 9 digits. And we're comparing once for each digit, basically, or it's like 3 times for each digit, but it's still like a very small constant number. Are there any other questions? Okay. So yeah. So basically like the main takeaway from this problem I think is to just try to make sure you fully understand the problem and to try examples. So a lot of times problems like this can be like generalized into big chunks instead of having to manually, for example, loop from every number from 4444 to 5000 to find like, oh, every number in between these is actually going to be rounded down. We can instead just represent this as a equation. So just checking if it's in between these. Okay, I'll now move on to the next problem. First, let me go clear the board. Is there a way to clear?